I was surprised to discover that for the last 4 weeks I've been testing Mark Williams' very own brand of Legends tips without actually realising it and thinking it's another brand of tip entirely. But before I explain how I made such a simple mistake, are Legends tips actually any good? Before going into more detail later, I've split this review into 3 simple categories. How long does it take to bed in? How straight does it strike the cue ball? And how reactive is it? Now, the old Elkmaster or Blue Diamond tips could take up to a couple of weeks to do this, and this will of course depend as well on how much you play. During this time you might find your tips a little bit unresponsive and feels a bit spongy when you strike the shot. The advantage of the modern layered tips is it completely gets rid of this problem. Now, you might notice compared to the Elkmaster that these don't really look any different. In fact, if I'd have swapped them around at the start, you might not have even noticed other than the brighter colour. And that's because they're constructed in exactly the same way. And it's probably because of that they take as long as the Elkmaster to bed in, if not possibly even longer. And that's a problem when you can just stick other types of tips on your cue and they will work more or less instantly. So bear in mind, I reckon it was a good 2 weeks before the tip stopped feeling soft and spongy, and that's with the amount I play. I realised that if I knocked it in with a spare cue ball, that would actually speed up the process rather than me waiting to play the shot every single time. But even with this, it still took far too long. So that's not a great start. But before you think it's all bad, it plays shots like this really well, because it seems to actually hit the ball straighter. Here's what I mean. When you strike to the side of the cue ball, whether intentionally or not, you deflect the cue ball offline in the opposite direction to which you hit it. Compared with tips I've tried in the past, there you go with that, the Legends tip seems to throw the cue ball offline less, giving it less deflection essentially, so it'll stay straighter and it's easier to predict when you play the shot with side because you haven't got to allow so much. In fact, compared to the Elkmaster I was using on this cue before, it was noticeable when I played a shot with side because I'd over allow for the amount of deflection, because the tip would strike the cue ball straighter than I was allowing for. I can't guarantee this is better than other tips, but it was a huge amount better than the previous Elkmaster I did have on this cue. And in theory that should also help on a shot like this one when I don't want to play with any side, because any unwanted side I do put on the cue ball should have less of an effect. Let's test that, let's see how it works. Yeah, just about went straight enough, even though I did put a tiny trace of left-hand side on that unintentionally. So that's definitely a plus. Things are looking up then. On to the next one. So finally, reaction. How much does it make the cue ball spin? As hopefully I'm about to show here, it's decent. Definitely better than the Elkmaster I had on it before. You see, that's not bad. But you will definitely find tips out there that screw back better than this or impart more spin on the cue ball than this tip does. Bear in mind I'm using the hardest tip in the range and the reaction is very good. I was playing for the green there, and there's a chance it would be even better if I was using a softer tip. But I do think there are slightly better options out there in terms of sheer grip and reaction. So in summary, the tip hits the ball very straight and is fairly reactive. It's just let down a little bit by how long it takes to bed in. The upside of this, however, is it does feel, once it's bedded in, like the old Elkmaster I was playing with before. So if you're used to that already, adapting to this won't take you any time at all. So let's have a look at the in-depth review and go over a few more things. The reason I'm using this tip is about 4 weeks ago my old one split in half and I had to replace it at quite short notice, and I just stuck on something I had lying around. For some reason Mark Williams' team about 6 months ago sent me a bunch of stuff after I did a review of one of their other products, so I had these good to go. I knew in the past that Mark Williams had been using Century tips, so I just assumed that's what they were, and it's only since I've come to do this review I discovered I was wrong, and they are in fact Legends tips. The plus side of that is these are designed not to split in half or have any failures in the way I had with my previous tip, so hopefully that won't happen in the future. I'll let you know once I change the tip what happened with it, and leave a comment on this video so you can see if you're watching this about a year from now. Although it might be worn out in the next month, and that's just wishful thinking on my part, I don't know. The other positive of this tip is it stuck to my cue very easily. I've had problems in the past getting tips to actually stick to the end of my cue because the tip itself was just a little bit too slippery and shiny. These ones are very similar to Elkmaster, which I found the easiest to stick on my cue, which when I was having problems with my ferrule I would have absolutely killed for. And it also seems a lot easier than other tips I've tried recently to sand down into a good shape. I think it looks fairly good considering I did this and I didn't get it done by anybody else, and I'm pretty happy with how it looks. So in general, I'm pretty happy with it, and the only thing that's a little bit disappointing is how long it took to bed in the first place, but once you've got over that, I don't think I'm going to have any problems with this thing whatsoever, and it's just a case now of how long it'll last. So apologies to anyone who heard me say I was using a Century tip, because I genuinely did think that's what this is. And it does explain when I complained a little bit about how long my tip was taking to bed in. Everybody who'd used a Century tip before said that theirs had bedded in almost instantly and it wasn't a problem. Mine felt like at the time that I'd stuck a jelly baby to the end of my cue because it felt all wobbly. It's sorted out now and I should probably stop complaining about it, but there was a good 2 videos in a row where it genuinely felt like it was never going to actually work. And in terms of reaction, it seems to be getting better and better, because I didn't think I got through that shot that well, and I've overscrewed it for the yellow. And I do the same thing here trying to get on the green, where I haven't actually given it that much, and it's reacted really well. So there's a chance the tip is still bedding in, which would be absolutely crazy 4 weeks later. And there's definitely layered tips that feel a lot more reactive than this, but genuinely it's not that bad, and considering how straight it seems to hit the ball, I'm very happy with it. Let's just see if I can finish off this break now, because I've run a little bit out of position and I'm going to have to play a longer pink than I want. I'm going to try and just roll it in from here, even though I'm a little bit close to the cushion, and hopefully I'll come out wide enough for the black. Just put a tracer right hand side on the cue ball, so I'm going to try the double here. And it seems like I played the Alex Higgins shot. Well, you've got to love that. Before we go, there's just time to find Martin, who's in Sofia, Bulgaria, which is there. If you want to know more about what I'm doing technically to try and improve at the game this year, then have a look at these 2 videos that explain just that. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.